The email didn't surprise me, only the timing did. 8 a.m. Friday, early enough to ruin their morning, late enough to leave daylight for revenge. I'd been awake since 6, the skyline sharpening in October's glassy light, black coffee cooling beside my laptop. When the notification chimed, I barely blinked. Subject line, banned from annual family meeting. No greeting, no explanation, just Margaret pulling the strings through the family secretary. For a moment, the faint trace of my mother's perfume drifted back, and I heard her voice from 2 Christmases ago, silky with condescension as she carved prime rib. "You don't have a voice." I'd smiled politely then, as I did now, because I'd already built my own table. I dragged the email into a desktop folder labeled Receipts, my private archive of slights and betrayals. The list was long. 2021, a vote to push me off the Ellison Holdings board. 2022, a memo proposing to erase my dividends. September 2022, Blake, my cousin, bulldozing for my removal from the Innovation Council. All time-stamped, all waiting. The phone rang once. Margaret's voice was brisk, falsely cheerful. "This saves us all some time, Katie." "Of course," I replied. The faint snap of her watch clasp carried over the line. "Enjoy your day." Click. I leaned back, glass walls spilling Central Park's red-gold sprawl before me. From up here, the city looked like a chessboard, and I'd been playing the longer game. A secure message flashed. "Sam." My cousin wasn't careless, which made his words heavy. "Today's meeting includes redistribution of shares from Walter's updated will." A smile tugged at my mouth. "Olivia," I called. She appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand, silk blouse immaculate. "Yes?" "Final status on Project Spotlight." "Locked and loaded. Forbes, CNBC, Bloomberg, all embargoed. Waiting for your signal." "Good." They'd barred me from the room. They forgot I owned the building next door. "When do we drop it?" Olivia asked. I glanced at the clock. "When they raise their first glass." Outside, clouds pressed lower, turning the skyline pewter. My monitors glowed, media dashboards on the left, the Ellison seating chart on the right, Walter presiding, Blake lounging where my chair once stood. Walter's old maxim echoed, "Assets belong with those who can protect them." He assumed that meant his hands. I was counting on it. Another secure ping. Sam again, a photo of the agenda. Redistribution circled, then a wide shot of the room. I zoomed in, marking blind spots. "Media desk," Olivia said. 2 items. First, broker contacts Blake's golf partner in 7 minutes. If the rumor spreads, it starts there. "Keep it vapor," I said. "Hints only. No trail." Second, CNBC's legal team wants a buffer in case the SEC stirs. "How much?" They asked for 30. I offered 5. Stood firm at 230. "Hold it. If they press, show revenue slides." Another ping. Sam's voice on the encrypted line. Low. Side hall camera rotated. Almost walked straight into it. "Switch to Route 1, I instructed, sliding the floor plan. "No photos unless empty. Audio only." He murmured. "Hopi." Olivia's phone buzzed. "Broker executed." The phrase was hearing chatter. Ellison's cybersecurity could be in play. "Perfect. Let it breathe." My monitor flashed, intercepted email. Blake to Walter. "Kate's assets are unstable. She must be excluded completely." Olivia raised her tablet. They blinked. "Embargo stands. Package is queued. We're green." "Then we stick to the plan." Rain began spattering against the glass. "Stage the valuation deck. Keep a second producer at the uplink." She nodded. "Only kind of safety I buy," I said. Rumors moved like weather fronts, spreading, bending, echoing. We didn't touch them again. Meanwhile, the seating chart glowed on my screen like a dare. Sam's whisper broke through. "I'm in. Sound check complete." Walter warned Blake to keep it measured. "There's a printout of the 2022 memo on the table." They cracked open the Project Spotlight binder. Every page carried a fail-safe. Every path had a backup. If legal stretched the buffer, we had precedent. If one outlet balked, another would carry the fire. If Blake crowed about liquidity, the AR deck would silence him mid-breath. I signed the last page and met Olivia's eyes. Decision hardened into steel. Put the champagne on ice. Her smile was quick, assured. Already did. On the far left monitor, the live feed steadied. The camera swept across oil portraits and leather chairs. Blake stood center stage, chin lifted, practicing his lines. Walter shuffled papers into neat stacks. Margaret checked her phone, her hair, then the phone again. The clock's second hand cut its merciless circle. 5 hours, I murmured. Some moments reshaped the whole board. Mine was set for 2:30 p.m., down to the second. At 2:15, the glow of the clock felt colder, deliberate. On the main screen, the Ellison boardroom gleamed, mahogany polished to glass, decanters waiting like trophies. Blake stood mid-slide, his voice warm, practiced. With certain ventures proving unstable. A pause, just long enough for the room to connect the dots to me. The board must protect the family's core assets. Margaret's approving nod bordered on theatrical. Walter leaned back, hands folded, judging this the final word. On my second screen, the receipts folder fanned open like a deck of knives. Olivia stood at her console, earbuds in, lips moving as she synced with 3 producers in 3 cities. Forbes, green. CNBC, green. Bloomberg holding for your mark, she reported. Mark at 2:30, exactly. My pulse was steady, timing mattered more than fury. On screen, Blake gestured toward a global map, arrows radiating from the Ellison crest. His voice rose. We must secure a future unburdened by 15 seconds, Olivia whispered. Walter leaned toward Margaret, whispering something. Her smile toward Blake carried the smug pride of a queen anointing her heir. 10, Olivia counted. Blake's mouth opened. At 0, Olivia tapped a single key. Across the world, push notifications ignited like flashbulbs. Forbes exclusive, Catherine Ellison, the billionaire CEO they didn't see coming. CNBC, secret cybersecurity empire tied to Ellison Aries, valued in billions. Bloomberg, Ellison name returns to top tech rankings. The boardroom fractured into reaction shots. Walter's head snapped down to his phone. Reading, rereading. Margaret's pen slid from her hand, clattering across the table. Blake froze mid-slide, staring at the glow in his palm as the color drained from his face. Walter rasped. This valuation, this can't be right. Olivia sent the second strike, the sealed government slide deck. Contracts and revenue. Undeniable. Phones lit around the table. Proof stamped in federal ink. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Blake's lips moved, but no sound reached the mic. Margaret straightened, masking panic with poise, but her hand fumbled for the pen that wasn't there. I selected the final image. My Forbes cover, black suit, arms folded, Central Park skyline behind me. Caption, sorry I couldn't join. Busy running a multi-billion-dollar company. It landed in the family chat like fire in dry grass. Profile icons lit up, scene checks stacked. Walter's eyes locked on the valuation slide. Unreadable. Margaret clasped her hands tight. Blake's jaw worked in silence. In my office, phones buzzed, first Olivia's, then mine, then both at once. The console hummed under the flood of incoming calls. Olivia arched a brow. Your phone's about to melt. The first caller ID flashed. Then another, then dozens. And if they thought that was the end, they hadn't seen the rest of the board flip. Morning cut sharper the next day. Blue sky, steel bright air. From the 60th floor, Elliott Bay looked like polished metal. In the lobby below, my family clustered beneath a hanging sculpture, faces lit by a ticker pulsing numbers they couldn't ignore. $998 million revenue, $300 million profit, 3-year federal backlog. Shoes clicked on marble. The fountain whispered. None of them spoke first. Olivia's voice in my ear, they're here. Walter stood stiff as a verdict. Blake paced, tugging at his tie every time the ticker flashed $300M. Margaret checked the same silent message over and over. Let them wait 20 minutes, I said, rotating the wall display so numbers and maps washed the lobby in steel light. Pride grinds down hardest against proof. Behind double doors, the replica boardroom waited, a mirror of Connecticut's, down to the oil portraits I'd corrected to their rightful order. Not to needle, to prove a principle. I never needed their room. Any room could be mine. The elevator climbed to 59 installed. Doors sealed in chrome like a withheld verdict. At minute 19, I closed the folder and rose. This time the doors parted. Olivia stood poised at the threshold. Welcome to Ellison Cybersecurity. Miss Ellison will see you upstairs. Upstairs carried the weight it needed to. Absolutely. The car ascended. Mirrors multiplied our reflections between floors etched with single words: trust, signal, shield. At 60, Walnut and Glass received us. Staff peeled off in silence. Past the atrium, the replica boardroom doors waited. Walter's gaze slid from me to an oil portrait, as if he might find authority in the paint. Miss Ellison, he said, formal, we should talk. We will, I said, after you're seated. They obeyed. Observers arranged themselves with the careful quiet of people who know presence isn't power. Walter set both hands on the table as if fastening ground. First, congratulations. Extraordinary. Thank you, I said. What matters now is alignment. He pressed on. Avoid duplication. Avoid confusion. For the good of the family brand. Fold Ellison Cybersecurity into holdings. Margaret smoothed the pitch. It's sensible. Consolidation. Synergy. One Ellison, I replied. Different legal entity, and it's staying that way. Blake twitched. There's reputational overlap. Risk. Risk, I repeated, lifting the remote. Screens flared alive. Contracts. RR. SEC ticks pulsing steady in the corner. What you're seeing is clarity. Blake's jaw tightened at the numbers. Margaret followed acronyms. Unmoored. Walter ignored the slides. His eyes stayed fixed on me. You've made your point, he said evenly, but our name still matters. That depends, I said. Noun or verb? Silence thickened. Walter shifted. Public questions are coming. Use our PR. Signal solidarity. We already have a podium. Olivia cut in from the wall. At least a framework. An MOU. It shows unity. It shows control, I said. That conversation is finished. The replica boardroom pressed on them, pulling their bodies into the old geometry, but refusing the old outcome. Walter's glance flicked toward the empty head chair, then back with something like respect. You've made improvements, he said. I thought you'd feel more at home this way. Accuracy has its own chill. Blake's knuckles whitened under the table. Outside, cranes turned against the bay, indifferent. Olivia leaned close. SEC cleared the S1 update overnight. I nodded toward the table. Let's begin. They believed this was negotiation. I knew it was the last lesson in power. Sunlight flared across varnish, making the table blaze. CNBC's crew waited silent against the wall. Tickers crept along with pre-market chatter. Walter smoothed a page he didn't need. For the good of the family brand, he repeated. Fold your assets. One voice. Margaret softened the blade. Sensible. Katie, a united Ellison. I remembered her line from Winter, you don't have a voice. Now the voice was mine. The seat was mine. The room looked outward. This company was built without your money. It will remain beyond your control. The consonants did the cutting. Walter measured. Blake squirmed. Margaret blinked. I tipped the remote. The wall brightened with Blake's own email to Walter. My exclusion plotted in casual cruelty. Sam's quiet courage sat in the watermark of pixels. Blake flushed, then stammered. That was risk management. Rumors move where you point them, I said. Evidence moves on its own. Margaret tried to pivot. We're protecting influence. The screens answered for me. Steel-stacked contracts. Sealed deliverables. Uplinks alive with fact. Walter tried once more. At least a memorandum. Unity. Ownership. No, I said. That door is closed. With a flick, Aurora Tower filled the glass, steel fused with sky. The old Ellison estate roofline, small on the ridge, like a draft signature I'd outgrown. Tonight, I said, Aurora Tower hosts the first ever remote NYSE opening bell, from Seattle. Blake reached for protest but found only optics. It looks like you're beating. Correct. I stepped closer, the tower's silhouette swallowing my reflection. For years they measured worth by doors, chairs, and keys. I built a horizon. That tower isn't just taller. It's mine. The camera panned from my face to theirs. Walter settling into acceptance. Margaret folding compromise into silence. Blake staring at his own betrayal. Mirrored back. Outside, riggers unfurled a banner pane by pane. Letters catching the sun. The room held, not triumph, but calibration. Revenge had been the rumor. Proof was what remained. Olivia's shoulder brushed mine. Not comfort, punctuation. The crew chief raised 2 fingers. Ready, steady. I walked toward CNBC's lights. Let's go. Make history. Behind me, the glass reflected my family, spectators to the ascent. Aurora Tower blazing in the background. Asterisk if this fight against silence and gatekeeping resonates, lend your voice. Leave your thoughts for Kate below. Which moment struck you? Which made you stand taller? Here's my counsel. Document everything. Choose timing over noise. Build your own room when theirs shuts you out. Never trade autonomy for approval. Measure by impact, not invitations. Stand tall. We rise farther when we rise together. Asterisk.